All right, guys, how's it going? So we have today on the bench uh a GH5. So this is the Panasonic GH5 or Lumix GH5 camera. So I have a camera here on the desk. I'll just pick it up for you guys. So here is the camera. It's Lumix GH5. It's reversed because the way I have my camera set up. But anyway, I have the body here and it is somewhat broken. So there's a corrupt firmware in this camera. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to load a new firmware onto a chip here, and we're going to try to see if we can swap PCBs. So basically, this is the one that came out of the camera here, and this is a defective unit that I bought off AliExpress for, I think it was like $120. It's expensive for a replacement, but it was all I could find, for the price, I guess. So you can get other defective GH5s on eBay. But anyway, I paid $200 for the camera. This is the original PCB. This is the replacement. They are different revisions, and so I don't know if the firmware will work between both of them. But what I want to do is I want to so the GH5 that I bought that's broken, the camera boots up and it works for the most part. You can see the image, you can change some of the parameters, you can change the modes. So like you can change from aperture priority, manual, custom, whatever. It recognizes the lens, the autofocus works, but you're stuck in the menus. You can't really change anything. There's like one menu option that pulls up when you pull up the screen, and that's it. It's like one page. That's it. You can't take any photos with it. You can't take any video with it. None of the buttons respond, like the shutter button. None of that responds. The navigation buttons work. A few of the buttons work. So it's like partially bricked. I tried my best to find a replacement firmware, or just like a rip on, or a dump, whatever you want to call it, online, and I couldn't find anybody that had like a dump of the firmware. So that is the reason why I bought this little guy here. This is the Xgecu T76, and this is the BGA67 adapter that we unboxed in an earlier video. Well, I was able to remove the chip from the board, and I dumped the firmware successfully. I also pulled the chip from this PCB here. This is a chip from a completely different camera, so just pretend that doesn't exist. But I pulled the chip from this board here, and I read the contents, and that chip had some errors in it. So I'm wondering if the only reason why this one didn't boot is because the firmware was defective, or the NAND chip was defective. I was able to read it, I think, successfully. I'm still a little new with this Xgecu software, but I'm pretty sure I was able to read it successfully. There were a few errors. There were like 7 errors. There was like 1 error per block, and there was like 7 blocks that had errors. But it did spit out a reading, and it did it successfully. So I saved the firmware from both cameras. And so today I'm just going to show you guys how to use the Xgecu here, and how to reprogram firmware onto a flash chip. And then once we do that, I will replace the NAND on here, and we'll just give it a shot and see what happens. If it doesn't work, then what I want to do is I want to take the firmware that I pulled from the defective NAND, and I want to copy that onto a good chip, and I want to put that on the board that I know is working, and we'll see what happens. This board, the reason why I think it could possibly be working is because it does power on, per se. It doesn't show anything. There was like a black screen, but I looked and the current draw seems fine. All the voltages that I could test seem fine. The main IC was heating up normally, and the power IC was heating up normally. Everything seemed normal. There could still be more wrong with it, but it's just going to be like a kind of like a Hail Mary before I start using this for parts, if it ever gets to that point. So, and worst case scenario, maybe I'll reach out to the seller on AliExpress and see if they can dump firmware for me, see if I can pay them to dump a firmware for me, and you know, maybe revive the camera that way. So I'm gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna get this stuff set up, and then we'll get cracking. All right, so I powered on the programmer, and the way this programmer works is so you plug it in via USB-C, you install the drivers, you have to reinstall the firmware on the Xgecu. It prompts you for like the first time. So we open up the chip holder here, and what I'm going to do, I've already done this, but I'm just going to do it again just to show you guys. So you want to take your chip here, and I'll just show you guys under the microscope here. So there is our chip. This is a Toshiba NAND. I won't give you the model number because it's a crazy long model number. But you can see underneath there are our balls. And I used the stencil here right there to reball this chip. So you can see the balls on the bottom there. Now, in order for this programmer to work, you got to make sure all your balls are nice and shiny. You know, that they look clean, they look good, they're adequate size, because it will have trouble reading if you don't have the balls clean. So essentially what we're going to do is I'm gonna move some of this stuff out of the way. I got a lot of stuff on my desk right now. So let's just go back to this real quick. All right. So this is the little holder for the programmer. And pin 1 is right there on that corner. So top left corner, you see there's pin 1. You want to make sure there's no dirt in the socket. Make sure the socket's clean. And we're going to align, if you can see it there. So pin 1 is on this top corner right here. So we're just going to take the chip and carefully push it in. All right, and there you go. So our chip is in, and you're just going to take the cover. All right, so you're just going to take the lid here and carefully close it. All right, and then we're going to head over to our T76 software here, and we're going to go ahead and click read. It will come up and it'll tell you which adapter to use. Now this is not programmed, so they don't have this exact chip in their list of devices. So you can go to config, operation, customize setting. We can change the voltage here. These are 1.8 volt chips, but I noticed when you try to write to them at 1.8 volts, they don't work. They like to fail. You can write to them at 3 volts, but obviously that's probably not good. So I'll just select 2.5 volts. And then all the other parameters are the same. I looked at the specifications of the chip and made sure that the parameters were the same. So then we're going to go ahead and click on read. Click read again. So it shows that it was detected, shows the ID, shows the capacity, says reading NAND flash. So it's going to read it. And then it's going to verify what it read to make sure that the data integrity is good. So it says read successful. And then we'll go back. And then we'll go back to block 0. So this is the information that it read off the chip. If you decide to change the firmware, so we go to load and we'll click browse, and then we'll look for our firmware file. So the one I have right here is the GH5 working dump. So we'll select that, and then we'll go ahead and click open. And it is a binary file. I'm not sure about the buffer region, all that stuff. I assume you just write it the same way you read it, because it's literally just taking a copy of the chip. So we hit OK. It's going to load that into memory, and then we're going to go click on program in the top center here, and then it says right here, you know, plug IC into ZIF socket, click program button. So we click program, and then it shows again that NAND was detected. Found a bad block at 768. I don't know if it's going to ignore that block or if it's going to delete it or what. Now we can use a like a bin reader or a program to read the firmware, and we can calculate and make sure that the two are okay. So it says chip programming finished, and you can go through. So this app is kind of limited. This is the Xgecu app is just limited to basically reading and writing. If you want to really investigate the firmware and like the encryption that is on the chip, you'll need to use a like a hex reader. But we can go ahead and click on read, and we can read the chip back and make sure that the chip is reading correctly. And then it's going to verify and read successful. So so we could take these two, the known good firmware that we loaded onto this chip, and then we can take this firmware that we wrote onto the chip and read back off, and we can compare the two and make sure that there are no like discrepancies between the two, because there was an error during writing. Now what we can also do is we can set this chip off to the side, and these are all 1 gigabit chips. So let's go back into OBS and we'll go back here so we can grab another chip. I believe this was the, yeah, I think this was the working chip that I pulled the working firmware off of. So what I'm going to do is I will just place it here in the programmer, and we'll see if this one has any errors during writing. Come on. It's getting wedged in there. Nope. Now it's upside down. This chip here has some pretty tall balls on it. I used 5mm balls on it. So there we go. So I'll just go back on the microscope and show you guys. So here's the original chip that I read the firmware off of for the PCB. And we will pop this one in real quick. And then we'll go back to our Xgecu software. And we will go ahead and let's just blank out the chip first. Go ahead and blank out the chip. Oh, it's showing a bunch of bad blocks. And it said error. So let's pull the chip back out. Sometimes you might need to reseat the chip. And then we will go ahead and see if we can blank it again. Yeah, no, it's not working. Let's see. No. to read device. Let's see if we can read it. And you can see this chip is a lot faster. So it read successful, so I'm not sure what that other thing was about. Let's try to program this chip. So we'll go back. This is what we read off the chip. So we'll go click on load. We got right here our GH5 working dump. So we hit OK. And then we'll go back to program again, and we'll see if we can write this to the chip without any errors. Okay, and it found another bad block. Same block, 768. So I'm not sure what that's about, why it's finding a bad block in the same region. It was working earlier. Programming. And it says that it's finished, so we will try this. It might be because it is 2.5 volts. Maybe we can go back up to 3 volts and see what happens. So let's just try it one more time. No, yeah, still got a bad block. So it could just be because the chips are old and degrading. But it's only one bad block, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. Also, it says in the corner that the ordinary adapters have high EMI or electromagnetic interference. So you need to use a socket with electromagnetic shielding. So you could put like a piece of foil over it, or you know, piece of copper or whatever, and connect it to a ground, and you can ground the exterior because it is susceptible to interference. So that could be an issue as well. So let's go back, and we'll go back here and see what we can do. So we have 2 chips programmed. I don't know if it'll be successful with that one block, that one bad block, but we'll give it a shot and see what we can do here. So I have the PCB here. Now I have to remove this chip first. So let's go under the microscope. All right. And there it is. Now this chip is a pain in the butt to solder on this PCB because it has all these support components. If you look at the working PCB, it has none of that. There's a couple, like, I guess, strap resistors or whatnot, but all these other pads are unpopulated, and there's like a little bypass capacitor right there. You can see it's a little crooked because I knocked that off too and I had to reattach it. But yeah, I mean, other than, you know, this chip right here, I'm not sure what that's for, but I did Google all the chip part numbers, and I found what most of the chips do. But yeah, because of this right here, you know, not having any like components nearby that you can knock off, this is much easier to solder compared to this one, which is a pain in the butt because you got stuff all around it. So you have to be very, very careful. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on our hot air station. Oh, actually, give me 1 second. And I'm going to have to turn on the exhaust fan. I have an exhaust hood above me to pull the fumes into. So I'm just going to pause real quick and get this set up real quick. All right, so you can probably hear, I have like AI noise filtering on this microphone here. So you can probably, I don't know, you might be able to hear the noise. But I have an AI noise filter on it, so it shouldn't be too bad. So we got our hot air gun here, and we're just going to start heating up the chip. There's already flux underneath the chip, so we don't have to worry about putting flux on it because it's already replaced and it still has flux residue underneath. But we're gonna heat it up until it begins to bubble. You always want to make sure you make circular movements around the chip while you're heating it up. See if we can bump it real quick. No, not yet. Almost there. Yep, it's ready. All right, so perfect. And there you go. And the chip's removed. Now we can put the chip next to it on the board. And we're just going to let that cool down a little bit. I'm going to grab my soldering iron real quick, and then we're going to remove these balls that are the residual on the board. Now, because this area is so small, I'm going to use, this is 1mm wick, solder wick. So because this area is so small and I don't want to knock off components, I'm going to move down. Usually I use much larger wick. So normally I have 2.5mm here, and you'll see just how big it is. So this works a lot faster, but it's way easier to suck up components and knock them off the board. I mean, we're talking, so this is the tip of my pinky finger here, and it is larger than the footprint of where we're working. So although it looks big under the microscope, it is very not big in person. So you always have to exhibit extreme caution when working with electronics like this. So I'm going to use my microscope and see how well we do. Come on. I could probably use a higher temperature, but I'm just trying to go low because I don't want to overheat the board or the pads. I guess I could, yeah, I could go a little bit higher because you can see a little piece of copper pulled off the wick. So whenever that happens, you want to increase your temperature just a little bit, or you can put more heat into the board. Like I can use that preheater that I reviewed a couple days ago or yesterday. And I can use something like that to continually dump heat into the board. But we don't want to, we want to avoid as much heat as possible, because the more heat cycles that we put into the chips, the faster they degrade. So, and the last thing we want is to damage a chip because we put too much heat into the board. Now, you'd be surprised what a lot of chips can handle. A lot of them can take a lot of heat, but at the same time, a lot of chips can also be pretty sensitive. So, just putting on another glove here because I just ripped my other glove that I was wearing. Come on, you turd. All right, there we go. Oh, actually, no, almost there. A lot of this stuff, a lot of the supplies that I get from the dollar store. So my gloves, my Q-tips, my alcohol, everything I get from the dollar store. Just because it's a dollar. It's like $1.25. And whenever you have consumables like that, I don't know, it's just nice to not have to spend a lot of money whenever you're going through stuff like that. If they were like $5 or $10, that would be a different story. All right. Almost done. I know I don't have to record this whole thing, but I'm just showing you guys the kind of the process as I go along, so you can see it from beginning to end. And now when I'm doing this, I might apply a little bit of pressure at first just to make good contact with the board so I get plenty of heat into it. But whenever you're dragging your solder wick along the pads here, you just want to gently push down. You don't want to apply any pressure because you will damage the board if you apply too much pressure. And I think we might be good. All right, I think that's probably good enough. So I'm going to put my soldering iron back real quick. I'm going to grab a Q-tip and some alcohol. Now, I don't have a pump. I just use a little spray bottle here, and I just kind of put my finger up to it. I just push until just a tiny little bit comes out. And just want to clean those pads. Oops. The thing about Q-tips, using Q-tips, is the fibers that come off the Q-tips. You always got to be careful because they can easily get snagged on a component. One thing that I would like to start using more, you'll see a lot of professional like technicians, they'll use like the makeup removing pads, like the super dense ones, and those work really good too. I also have the alcohol pads, like the wipes that you use like in like diabetic supplies and whatnot. Those work pretty good, but those also have long fibers that can get stuck in some of these components here. So you just got to be careful, because you can easily knock off a component this way too, just by cleaning. And obviously if you have fibers stuck to the board, you know, those fibers are going to get soldered underneath the chip and could cause issues. Yeah, so anyway, just want to clean all the flux off the board. Then we're going to go ahead and grab some solder here, and we're going to solder on the new chip. All right, and the other day I was showing this this mechanic nano flux paste. Yeah, this stuff is pretty good. It's not the best that I've used, but it's pretty damn good. It works very well. And that's what I had underneath the chip. So we're just going to take a little bit more. I don't know what I'm hearing. I'm hearing something behind me. I don't know if it's like a bug in my hair or something. Yeah, so we'll just apply a little bit. Take one of our fingers and just kind of rub it in there a little bit. It's probably too much flux, but we can always remove some more. I don't know what that sound is. It's like something behind me scratching. Alright, I think we got plenty of flux on there, that's fine. So, let's take our chip. Yeah, this is our G89L. It's so weird. It's just like, keep hearing something. Maybe I don't, it's coming out of my IEMs or something. Yeah, so we got our chip here. We need to find where the corner marker is, or the pin 1 marker. Pin 1 marker should be right there. You can see there's a ball missing. So you see we got rows of 3, rows of 3, rows of 3, and then there's only rows of 2 right there. So if we look at the, whoops. If we look at the underside of our chip, right there is where that ball is missing. So that's where that's going to go. And we're just going to feed it down. And now whenever you solder, obviously you want to make sure that it's as perfectly centered as you can get it. And I think that looks pretty good. Take our microscope. It's kind of a glare. Yeah, we can push the bottom over just a little bit. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and heat her up. Now, I want to start with low temperature, so I'm going to turn the fan speed down a little bit. This is a 858D, just Chinese, cheap knockoff. So I'll probably start at like 2 for airflow. Just move the chip that we removed. And we're just going to add some heat into the board. If you guys want a better look at what I'm doing, probably can't really see it too well, but just taking the soldering or the heating gun, just making wide passes over the PCB just to get heat into the whole board. Not a lot, but just enough to so the the heat doesn't get wicked away through the ground plane. So let's go back to the microscope. And now I could and probably should use a nozzle adapter, but I'm just being lazy right now, so I'm just using the whole heat gun. I'm not using a nozzle adapter. Plus you get a little bit more airflow whenever you just use the whole heat gun. But yeah, once you get a decent amount of heat into the board, you can start ramping up your airspeed. But you don't want to go too crazy with it because you will blow the chip away. And again, you just want to keep a circular motion above the chip. And one of the problems, if you get it lined up like too precisely, you won't see the chip drop. But you can kind of look at the surrounding components and see if the solder becomes liquid. And to be honest, that's probably plenty of heat into it. Yeah. So I gave it a little bump. It moved back, so we're good. It's definitely heated for sure. So we are a-okay. So we're just gonna let this cool down a little bit, and then we'll clean the PCB and finish that in just a second. We also have the chip that we removed here. So we're gonna go ahead and clean this, which is where this comes in, little chip holder. So let's go back here. This is our little chip holder here. And this is the whole reason why I bought it. It's because these BGA67 chips, they're really tiny. Now, this is on this little thing here. I think I want to put some like grease or whatever, because it's on a whatever you call it, a like a lazy Susan kind of thing, you know, because it can spin around. I think maybe I'll put like a little dab of grease on the underside, like right in this cavity here, so that way it puts a little resistance on it, makes it a little easier to work with, because the way it is right now, it moves around a little too much for my liking. I mean, I could always just pull it off, I guess, and just leave it without. I guess that works too, but it would still be nice to be able to twist the chip, you know, manipulate it in different directions. And let's go under the microscope here, and I will remove the solder balls underneath the camera here for you guys. So I'm just gonna go ahead and use my big wick. This big wick also has flux in it. That previous wick that I was using doesn't have flux in it. So this wick, you'll notice it works a lot better for picking up solder. All right. Do it this way. I'm going to change my approach up a little bit. I don't like doing it that way. So I'm going to angle a chip sideways like this. And I'm going to have the wick at one end, and I'll have the soldering tip at the other, so they're pulling against each other. This will keep the wick from fraying as easily. And I might need to raise my temperatures a little bit. I mean, honestly, I'm using a, what do you call it? I'm using like a, I don't know, they call it tin planting or whatever on the Chinese sites, but it's essentially a, what you call it, solder paste stencil So it makes soldering a lot easier. Whenever you're using the balls, you have to make sure you remove all the solder and that this is like completely flat. And I don't know, it looks... Oh yeah, it's flat. Sometimes the pads can get like a little bit of tarnish on them from too much heat, excessive heat. I mean, I have this down, well, it says 247 now. It's supposed to be at like 215, 220. Or even like 230. But yeah, so sometimes, you know, if you're putting too much heat into the chip, these pads will get tarnished and it'll look like there's solder on them. But you can see there's just a tiny little bit on some of the pads, but they're pretty clean. So the chip looks good. And then what we can do, and I'm not used to having this be so easy, I guess just because I've had practice now that I've gotten better at it, but it is super easy to use these stencils here. So I have chip like right there. But yeah, so it's like super easy to reball these chips. Now, what I like to do is take some Kapton tape and put it on the underside. But honestly, I probably wouldn't even have to do that. I don't have all my stuff here right now. So I probably won't do it on camera. I'll do it off camera just because it's a pain in the butt right now and it's going to take forever to show you guys. But yeah, it's like super easy. You just take a little piece of Kapton tape, put it on the back of the chip, tape it to this little stencil that we got right here. So this little stencil that we have right here, and then you just take your I don't even know if I have it around here. Yeah, I do. Take your little vial of solder paste, and then I should have it, yep, right here. And then you should have these little like squeegee tools, just little pieces of metal, like little metal shims, and just all you do is just pour it on there and get a good little glob. And then you can take your well, these are my normal tweezers, but you can take your tin planting or your solder tweezers. I don't see them around here. I got too much stuff. But yeah, and then just hold down on the board, scrape all the excess off, make sure that you have it packed real tight into the holes there. Here it is. And then just take your heat gun and go over it with some heat and make some nice shiny balls. And then once you pull this template off, or this stencil, then you can just hit it one more time with a little bit of heat just to make sure that the balls are fully formed, because when you have the stencil on there, there'll be like little specks of solder that got underneath, just little teeny pieces. But yeah, if you reheat it, then it'll join up with the rest of them. So let's go to our board here. All right. Here's our board. This is the chip that we just soldered on, and I'm just going to take my Q-tip. I don't want to do this while it's like still super hot, because thermal shock. I don't want to, you know, because the alcohol evaporates quickly. So what it's going to do is when it evaporates, it's going to pull heat with it. And so I don't want to thermally shock the chip by putting cold alcohol that's going to evaporate quickly and then draw all the heat out of the chip. That's just going to cause more damage to the chip and degrade the chip faster. You just wait for it to cool down just a little bit. Then you can go ahead and clean it without worrying about damaging it. And this is I'm not using 99% IPA. I know it is better to use 99% IPA, but I am just using was it 91 or 93 or whatever it is, because it's like I think it's like $2.25 a bottle, or like $2 a bottle. And then the 70% stuff is like $1 a bottle, but that has so much water content in it that you really don't want to use that unless it's like something you don't care about, or like if you're reballing a chip and you just need to get the flux off of it, and so you're just letting it soak. Then I'll use like 70% just to like soak a chip into, because you're gonna dry the chip anyway before you put it back on the board. And you can see with how yellow our cotton bud is, how much flux that we pulled up. And you saw how much heat I had into the board, or how long I had my hot air gun on there. And you can see how clear this flux is still. Now it could probably be a little easier to remove, you know, if I use the different flux. But this stuff is really good, man. It's super clear. It's got low fumes. It's got very low odor. It wets well. It makes good solid joints. It is it's pretty good stuff. Still got a little bit of grease on there. I don't know why I can't get rid of that. Just like a tiny little bit of flux residue that I'm having trouble getting off the board. All right. So yeah, so there's our chip all soldered on. We can take a look at the balls on the underside here. So, zoom underneath. Looks like there might be... I don't know, it looks mashed down a lot. I hope there's not a bridge connection. Now the connections all around the outer edge are grounds. So even if with it being like mashed down a little bit, it should be fine. But it looks, you can kind of see it right there. They look almost like they could be bridged together just a little bit. Nah, I think that's just my eyeballs deceiving me. But yeah, we can look at it from this side. I mean, you want it to be squished down a little bit, so we can see from this side. Honestly, I think we're probably pretty good. But you can see how there are fibers. So see how we got like cotton fibers stuck all up in this like capacitor here. That's what you want to avoid by using the cotton buds. Whenever you go around components, you'll get a ton of this stuff. I don't know if you can see that. It's really hard to see, but that is a lot of cotton just kind of like shoved into the board. But anyway, I'll go ahead. I'll take care of that later. That's not a big deal right now. But I just want to make sure that the chip soldered correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and pause it here, and then I'll plop it in the camera, and we can power on the camera and see if anything happens. Who knows? Maybe it works. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it blows up. I don't know. It's worth a shot, though, so we'll try it out. All right. Now for the moment of truth. I put the camera back together, and I have the PCB in there. One of the LCD flex ribbon cables had a little bit of trouble getting it in the connector. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. Let's just make sure the camera's off. Pop our battery in. And then we get a light. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. That's a bad board. That's a bad board. Hey. Hey. What do you know? Menu. No. Oh, I need the firmware. Oh man, it's doing the exact same thing. Oh, I need the firmware. No. Oh man, I'm so close. Oh, I need a firmware dump. I need a firmware dump of the GH5. If anybody out there, if you have a GH5, I can borrow so I can dump the firmware from it. I can fix this camera twice. So the PCB works, the firmware quote unquote works, but it's not. Man, that is crazy, dude. Let's here, hold on. Okay, so I'm gonna put a lens on this real quick. I'll be right back. Let me just pause this for a second. Actually, you know what, guys? So I was able to read the firmware off of the broken PCB that's in there now, off of that dead firmware chip, and I did get a good extraction. So I'm wondering if I can load that onto a chip. I'll try that in the good board, because this is, you gotta remember, this is the good board. This is the one that originally came out of the camera. Man, that is so crazy. So they sold me a working PCB, but they must not have known that the firmware was or the NAND was bad on that. All right, so this lens is bad, so just kind of ignore it, but I just want to make sure that it actually boots up. Oh man, that is crazy, dude. So like everything works, like the touchscreen, so I can go in the menu, you know, I can click on options. I can save, restore camera settings. You know, advanced mode. There's like a password screen here. I don't know if this maybe was like a stolen camera or something. And you know, I don't know, because I've heard things that you know, people, I guess trade shows or whatever, that or people that work within Panasonic, that they will lock the cameras, lock the firmware, and so like if somebody steals the camera, they can't use it without the password. But you can see like the tracking's working. It's like tracking objects. The lens is broken, so just keep that in mind. The lens is broken, but it is doing everything. So I can change modes. See, expressive, custom, video, I think manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, P, I forget what P is, automatic, but it won't take pictures. It won't take pictures. The autofocus lock works, so I can, you know, you can manually, oh, that's the zoom ring, I forgot. So, but yeah, so like pretty much everything works. The viewfinder, so you can just barely make out in there that the viewfinder is on. So that's working. The play button doesn't do anything. The joystick here doesn't do anything. If I hit menu, you know, I can go through the different settings and whatnot, but that's it. It doesn't give me the full menu. It will not give me the full menu. And as you can see, I can't take pictures. Hit the white balance button, hit any of these buttons. And I know that's not part of the camera body itself. Everything is controlled through the PCB. And got a little button up front here. So try to hit that. Yeah, see, that's not doing anything. So it's working. Well, that's a really good sign. That's a fantastic sign. So that means that the firmware image that we extracted using our Xgecu here, it did work. It pulled the firmware correctly. There were no errors, even with that one read error or write error or whatever it was that we got in the one block. It must have ignored it or marked it or whatever, so it, you know, it doesn't read from it. Because everything's exactly the same. This is not even the same chip. So the chip that I removed from this camera that came on the good working board was this one right here. So this is the chip. So this is the one that was originally pulled from this camera and from this working PCB here. So this one we know for a fact completely works. This is the original PCB. Yeah, so shoot, man. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stop the video here. Okay, so I'm gonna make a second video. I'm gonna stop the video here, but we know that our transplant worked. We know that the PCB that we bought for $100 from AliExpress that was labeled as broken, not working, we know that it works because I told you, I checked it with a thermal camera. I saw all the chips were operating. Everything looked normal. I checked the voltages. Voltages were good. So we know this works for a fact. So we have 2 working GH5 PCBs, which is awesome because these things are like, they want like $400 on AliExpress for this right here, just this board. Which is just like ridiculous because the cameras, you can get them like used for like less than $500, and this broken, I got this one for $200, and this body is in fantastic condition. It's like there's like barely a scratch on it. It was like had to hardly ever be used. So I'm gonna write the bad firmware, or the quote-unquote bad firmware from that defective chip. I'm gonna write it to another chip here. I'm going to transplant it into the the known good working PCB. Well, I guess they're both known working, but the original PCB. And then we will transplant it into the camera and we'll see what happens. If we don't get any image, or if it just does not work at all, then we know for a fact that I guess maybe it's just bad firmware, but it did get a good extraction. So I have faith. And if that firmware is intact, then maybe we have a chance of fixing this. If not, I'm going to need you guys to help me. Somebody out there has to have a GH5 that they can let me borrow and extract the firmware so we can put it up on a website, because like there are people that I know who have GH5s and have the ability to pull the firmware off of their cameras, but for whatever reason haven't, or they just haven't released it, or it's just not available. It's not like on a Google Drive or something. And maybe eventually what I'll do is I'll set up a Google Drive with the firmware. So if we can get a working firmware, I'll post it on the Google Drive. And then if anybody has a broken GH5 that they want to fix, they can use their Xgecu here to, you know, reflash the firmware. Because I mean, this is the GH5, I mean, for anybody that doesn't know, you may not be into cameras. Like I said, I got a G85. This is the one that's filming my face. The one up top is a G7. They're both 4K cameras. They're old cameras. They're like 2014, 2015. This camera was released in 2016, and it was like way ahead of its time. Not only does it do 4K, but it also does full frame 4K, like almost like cinema quality. I mean, this camera was so ahead of its time and is so beloved by the creation production community. It's like a legendary camera. So anytime one of these dies, it's a sad day. I mean, even though they're not as valuable as they used to be, these are huge workhorse production tools. They made millions of these things, you know, and so if we can save one from the landfill, or save somebody some money and they don't have to spend a shit ton taking it to a Panasonic, you know, certified dealer or whatever. I tried contacting companies and they were like, no, we can't do that for you. Because I was like, can I get a firmware image, or can you flash a chip for me? And the company, they either didn't respond to my emails, or they messaged me back and they said, no, we don't do that. No, we're not going to do that, or no, we don't have the ability to do that. So I said, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to get a programmer. I'm going to buy a programmer, and I'm going to program these chips. I have the ability to solder them I've already fixed like 4 cameras. We won't talk about it right now, but I have experience fixing cameras, so we're going to program our own chips, and that's what we did, and this is awesome. So this is a great start. So anyway, I'm gonna stop the video here. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will catch you in the next one. We're gonna do graphics cards, a bunch of stuff. I got an unboxing video. I might post that today too, because I just have way too much stuff that I just need to get out there. So anyway, I'll catch you guys later. Have a good one. Peace.